Good morning. So we're going to talk today about feelings, emotions, um, intuition, and we're going to try to clear up a lot of confusion about these topics that actually exist. So I was just going to kind of go over a few thoughts real quick and then bring my co-host on, and we're going to get this party started. So the way I see it, guys, feelings are the interpretations of emotional content within our consciousness. So, like, feelings are sensations of interpreting an experience. So, like, emotions are the initial, automatic, physiological, and psychological response to some kind of stimulus. So, while feelings are the conscious experience and interpretation of those emotions, according to most like online therapists, and everybody, essentially emotions are the raw data and feelings are how we make sense of that data. So that's where I'm coming at it. Emotions, on the other hand, these are often described as like the immediate, often physical responses to an event. So they can include changes in heart rate, breathing, facial expressions, hormonal levels, etc., etc., etc. Now, these feelings, these are the subjective conscious experiences that arise from our emotions. They are how we interpret and label the physical and mental sensations associated with an emotion. Could be positive or negative. For example, you might experience a sudden increase in heart rate and sweating when encountering a threat. So the conscious awareness of fear that follows is the feeling. And this is not according to me. This is also backed up by the Counseling Center group, which you can check them out. They talk a lot about that. So there's a certain non-dualist aspect to this. There's an interconnectedness. So while distinct emotions and feelings are deeply interconnected, feelings are influenced by the emotions, but also by other factors like memories, beliefs, and personal experiences. I got that from Psychology Today. So it wasn't even like an ancient Buddhist script or anything like that. You can see this on contemporary psychology to back that up. Now, emotions, there's a lot of myths about emotions. So, um, a lot of people think that they are hardwired and that they are a reaction to the world, that emotions happen to you. But this isn't really true. They happen through us, not to us. We experience emotions like as a controllable event that we can take the reins on and control and direct, but this is kind of illusory. Your body is actually regulating itself. So metabolic factors, etc., kind of factor into that. So you don't experience this directly, but it's kind of like a summary. If you feel worked up, you feel tired, energized, sad, depressed, somehow just abnormally happy, you can kind of think to yourself and figure out what's going on that I'm not aware of. Sometimes I talk to my co-host Sophia about my feelings on certain things, and we talk about, well, what's really going on that we're not talking, like there's other things that we may not even be aware of, like family issues or other issues that are leading to your feelings of being tired and stuff like that. So, feelings are not really synonymous with emotions, though. It's just that I think your brain is telling itself a story based on what you have ever learned in order to try to make sense of it, or to make expectations and explanations for these feelings, and then of course your actions and behaviors that follow. So it's important to know that when something goes wrong, you can sort of use it as a tool to kind of figure out what's going on that you may not really be aware of, and then you can sort of transcend the feeling. So depression usually comes from really just not understanding your feelings and emotions. So for me, the first step in helping is to first of all become self-aware that the brain is using past experiences to form current beliefs, feelings, and subjective reality. That's what it's creating. So to change the past, we have to change the present. So we invest energy into cultivating new experiences. So, like, what I'm trying to do in my life is I try to do different things, do things outside the norm, get out the house more often, visit people, talk about things I don't usually talk about, get outside of my brain's prediction. It's kind of like a predictive machine. So I need to fool it, trick it, get away from it, transcend it, create a new story, become different than I am now. Because I really believe we have more control than we may think we do. But until we really raise our consciousness, we're always going to be locked in, kind of like an NPC in a video game or a zombie, some kind of unaware being, unconscious. We have to take responsibility for our experience. First of all, acknowledge that we even have an experience and that it's real. And then, because we do that, we can do something to change it. And the sad fact about it is that we are really the only ones who can do this. So we have to go out of our way to discover tools at our disposal for changing our life experience. And so this is kind of what I wanted to share. Like, for example, I used to suffer with attachment trauma. So attachment trauma can influence our feelings about ourself and our core beliefs about ourselves. You can say things to yourself because of that, like, I don't matter, I'm not good enough. And these feelings, stated, lead to contempt, embarrassment, shame, anger, resentment, and even projection onto other people if we're not careful. And you become sort of narcissistic until we really deal with our feelings and our consciousness. We have to do that. This will lead or feed into the mirror system of perception. And so we will create a subjective reality that is self defeating if we feed into it. So we have to have a system or tool for changing this cognitive distortion, as I call it, so we can sort of restructure our cognitive restructuring. So, um, what I like to talk about is this cognitive restructuring in stages. So, like, the first stage is to recognize the thought and then record it. Like, ask yourself, what is going through your mind during the time that you're angry? Write it down in detail. Notice any shift. It may be a false interpretation. Examine it. Jot down the details related, like, when did it happen? What actually happened? Why do you think you reacted the way you did? And then also describe the emotion. Did it make me feel angry? Did it make me feel humiliated, offended, happy, etc.? And then rate the strength, like 0 to 100. Like, when this particular thing happened, how intense was it? Was it a 50? Was it a 99? Was it 100? Was it threatening? How strong did I feel it? Or did it just sort of pop in my head as just a thought, like, I wonder if this is the reason this is happening, but oh well, and just keep on going. So the second stage is to challenge the thought. Argue for both the defense and the prosecution, like a courtroom. Turn it into a statement like, I'm a failure, or my boss has it out for me. She's always trying to get me. Then write out all of the evidence that can prove that thought. And then write out any possible scenarios that would be against the thought. Like, are there things about the situation you may not be aware of? If a friend told me this, how would he respond if I told him that? Or if he told you that, how would you respond? and then try to put yourself in that position. And then try, the goal is to reach a fair verdict. Look at a way to sort of balance that conclusion, reflect on the new thought. What are the differences if you change your thought? And why did you change your thinking about it? Like, this is a way to sort of restructure your thoughts and your feelings about the thoughts. Cognitive distortion can actually be the cause, and usually is the cause of your feelings, because it's an interpretation, right? And so there's tools you can use, and those are kind of the things that I would sort of suggest. Write this stuff down. So then we have intuition. So intuition is another tool that we can use to kind of navigate ourselves through these sort of traumas and things like that. But someone may say, yeah, but how do you know the difference between your intuition and your feeling? Well, the thing about it that a lot of people don't understand, and me and Sophia, we've talked about this before on the show when people ask us those questions. And Sophia had said one time, and I went back and looked, is that she had said intuition is actually developed. And I started thinking about that. I'm like, wow, that's kind of interesting, because that kind of gives you hope. Like, she was saying there's like times when it can be safely applied, and then there's times it maybe shouldn't. So I kind of looked it up, right? Like, how can we actually develop our intuition like that? So I came up for a few rules from what I gathered from what I researched on the topic. And so, number one rule I came up with is never use intuition when you're overly emotional about something. If you're in the heat of the moment and angry, you don't want to use your intuition then, because you can be blurring that between feelings. So you want to be in a calm state of mind. You want to be in a balanced state of mind when you exercise your intuition. Number two, only use it for things you are experienced with. Like, just actually yesterday, I was solving a problem and somebody was like, how did you know to do that? You didn't really have nothing really pointed to it directly. How did you know to go into the system and approach it that way? And it's just experience. It's like the intuition kicks in. I don't really have to think about it. It's like I'm starting to become more intuitive about problem solving in certain things. And so that's your intuition. It's getting practice. It's developing. So number three is don't use it for primal urges. This is what I'm really bad at. Like on social media, whether you want to do drugs or drink alcohol, my intuition is telling me I need to drink today. Or my intuition is telling me I should probably do some heroin or crack. Like, that's not intuition. That's just your urges. That's your primal urges. Those are your feelings. You have to know the difference. So number four, never you use intuition to think probabilistically. Like, what are the chances this could happen? Well, I'm not going to really study that. I'm just going to go with my intuition on it. That's a bad idea, because you're using your feelings. You may want an outcome to be a certain way, and you're trying to justify it by saying my intuition is telling me this is true. And how many times have we learned that's always failed or could fail? Now, unless you have experience, but like I said, focus on things you have experience with, focus on things you understand, and don't do it, out of context. So that leads to the fifth rule of mine, which is only use in familiar context. So you wouldn't want to use intuition. I wouldn't want to use intuition when I'm trying to build a bridge or something, because I've never built a bridge before. I don't know how to fucking build a bridge. I'm not an engineer. So because I'm not an engineer, I'm just going to go with my intuition on it. Like, that's not a good idea. Not very smart. So, anyways, those are kind of my thoughts about that particular issue. And I wanted to go ahead and bring Miss Sophia on. How you doing, Sophia? I got you muted, so let me unmute your mic, or I can't.
Muted myself.
There you go.
I muted myself. It was me. It was me. How are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing today?
aside from me gonna kill my boyfriend last week, I'm doing just fine.
All
No,
right.
stop. I'm doing good.
Yeah. Cool. Cool. So what are your
But
thoughts
I've
about
been
all these
listening to you,
things? Yeah.
Scott, and
Mhm.
yeah, so you're not gonna like me because
Uh-oh.
I disagree.
Okay.
Um, you had it somewhat, somewhat. I agree with you, but I would say, okay, first of all, you don't use intuition. You can't use it. It uses you. All right, in a
Mm.
sense. And so what happens is you have to be open to intuition, and that's the whole thing about being a mystic. As a mystic, myself, I've always been very open to intuition. And a lot of times, you become open to it through trauma. Like, look at trauma as something cracking you wide open to
Mhm.
a different frequency or a different reality. And that reality, I would say, is the underlying reality. So when we're talking about feelings versus intuition, we're talking about, okay, your feelings are usually what I would refer to as egoic, because it's dealing only with your survival, your biological mechanism. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And so when there's a physical threat, you're going to have a physical biological reaction, and those are feelings. They're just a little more subtle than, let's say, being stabbed, right? But
Mm.
if you notice, whenever you think someone's doing you wrong, or when someone makes you angry and you've had these feelings, we all have, you actually also have a physical reaction. Like your heart rate may go up, you may start sweating. That's how you know it's a physical thing. It's not
Mm.
intuition at all, at all. So while they serve a purpose for survival, right? To let you know when there is a physical threat, these feelings can be manipulated, they can be misperceived, they can be false, right?
Yeah.
They're not inherently they're not inherently true and correct, you know, necessarily. But when you have intuition is like, it's more like a channeling, right? It's
Mm.
like you're tuned in to another layer of reality. And when you're tuned into that layer of reality, intuition just kind of hits you. And so the difference between that and feelings is, when intuition hits you, it's a moment of clarity. It's complete, pure consciousness, pure thought, pure clarity. There's no confusion. There are no feelings involved with it. There's no sweating and anger or your chest thumping or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? It's just pure clarity. And
Right.
it
Right.
can definitely happen. It can happen when you're not calm at all. You don't have to be calm for intuition to break through. It can happen at some of your worst experiences in your life. That's actually how it kickstarts.
Can you give an
Unless,
example?
you've been okay, for an example, back in the day, I was dealing with this guy and he was really violent and vicious, but he was pretending to be really nice. But intuitively, I knew he wasn't. And he was really dangerous. And my intuition just kicked in. I had a vision about him wanting to attack me and growling like an actual animal, right?
Mhm.
And at the time, I didn't know this consciously, but I knew it intuitively. And so it didn't make much sense to me. And I was like, why would I have this vision about this guy that I'm about to marry? This doesn't make sense.
Mm.
And the vision was so detailed. In the vision, my best friend was actually holding him back from attacking me. A week later, I found out he was cheating on me, and I flipped out and I took his laptop and smashed it against a pole. And he had all his music on there. And he fucking instantly turned into the exact animal that I saw in my vision. And my best friend ran over to him and held him back because he was going to kill me for, smashing his laptop. And so I was like, wow, how the fuck did I foresee this? And that's because,
Wow.
there was already tension between us, but it was so under the radar that I was consciously not aware of what was going on. But my intuition knew. You know what I'm saying?
I see. So let me ask
So
you this. Do you think intuition can be like a way of envisioning the future? Like sort of like telepathy in some way, like some sort of, or maybe not telepathy, but some sort of vi- uh, visualizing the future as it affects you.
no, it's not envisioning, because you're not envisioning that. Like I said, intuition is something that happens to you. It happens through you,
Got you.
but you have to be open to it. So what happens is, if you're not open to intuition, you're going to miss the frequency. Like everything is frequency and resonance. But a lot of people go through life and they're not aware of the subtle resonance and frequency. They think of everything, intellectually and biologically. But what happens is, you're tapped into the underlying process, and the underlying process or frequency in my situation was, there was toxicity going on. I was being lied to. I was being cheated on. And even though I had no proof of it or no physical signs of that, intuitively I knew. And so my intuition gave me a visual of that. And that's
Mm,
kind of like, it's almost like an educated guess based on the frequency. It's like putting the frequency together, and then, or tapping into the frequency, and then the frequency displays an image. You see what I'm saying?
mm,
And
mm.
that image can be very, very accurate, down to the point where it seems like fortune telling or prophecy. You know what I'm saying?
So when you say that, because you were saying that you disagree, I'm trying to figure out where we actually disagree. So when you say that intuition isn't really a tool, but it's something that happens to you or through you, are you saying that we can't change a situation based on our intuition, or what do you mean, like not using it as a tool necessarily?
No, what I'm saying is that you don't use intuition. It's not like you using it as a tool. You have to
Oh,
work on being open to it.
oh, I see. I think
You see what I'm
I
saying?
yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to say. Because yeah, I would agree. You can't really use intuition kind of like an intellectual thing. Yeah, I do understand that. I guess maybe I
Right.
worded
You
it a
have to
little
be
weird.
open.
Yeah, it's like it's something that's gonna
Right.
happen
No,
to you
I
more
mean, I know
often.
you kind of know.
Yeah, as long as, like, if you practice and if you
You have
become
to be
open, then it will come to you more often. But you have to first of all be open and self-aware enough for it even to be in your life like that, I think.
right. You have to be open to it because it's a different type of awareness.
Right,
You see what I'm saying?
right, right.
It's just another layer of awareness. That's the best way I can put it. It's another layer of awareness. And some people, live fully by their eyesight and what they can see and what their physical impulses tell them, and that's it. No one really suspects that there's underlying subtle energies at play, you know?
Hmm.
And so, as long as you don't believe that, that there's an underlying reality, which is what we're saying as people, as idealists, we're
Hmm.
saying consciousness is fundamental.
Right,
That's what's, in the background.
right.
So if you're not in touch with that, you're not going to have intuitive hits.
Bingo. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. You're saying it just a lot clearer than me. Um, that's really true. That's exactly what I'm
But
saying.
that's
It's
only
like,
because I experience it.
yeah, I know. You're very intuitive and for much, much longer than me. Like intuition and really all of these sort of ideas, I'm really starting to form into my embodiment. Like for so long, they've been like intellectual sort of ponderings, if you will, like certain things that I would consider or go back and forth about. But then I started actually trying to put into practice these sort of like move it from belief stage into practice stage. And once I did that, once I actually committed to like this is probably this is reality, this is how it works. So let's act accordingly. When I started doing that, I do see a shift. I do see more intuition playing in my life. And I'm not so attached to the intellectual rationalizing things away as I used to be. Now I'm like, let me not rationalize it away. Let's just let it work through me and see what happens. And when you do that, yeah, I see
Exactly. And that,
exactly what you mean. It comes to you more often.
yeah, you can just, you know, open yourself up to it through meditation. All types of stuff works. Um, uh, Music works for me, right? I am a music head. I usually share music on my wall just so I can listen to music all day because it's easily accessed
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
And I just share a bunch of music on my wall, not for everyone else, but I use my Facebook as a playlist almost. So I listen to music all day long because music is energy and frequency, and it helps keep my own frequency in alignment. And I don't just listen to any kind of music, it has to resonate with me. And I think music is a really good way to keep yourself open to the subtle underlying energy, going out in nature and just feeling, um, observing nature, being a part of nature, outdoors, in the woods or whatever, or by the river. Whenever you do things like that, you keep yourself open to it.
Mm, yeah. I do resonate with that.
Because
Like,
we're distracted.
I'll give you an example. Like last week, as you know, like last weekend, I was extremely tired. Like I was just really tired. But then, at the same time, something was pushing me to write music. Like, I'm a musician, I write songs, and usually I only write at my leisure. Like, I'm only going to write a song when I'm energized and I feel like it. Because, well, I mean, why do it when you're not feeling it? Like it's going to be garbage.
Right, it
That's my
has to like
that's
flow
that's
from
my
you.
thought. Yeah, that's my thought. But what happened though was something wasn't an intellectual thought, but it was more like a inner, and it sounds corny, but it's like an inner knowledge that you need to be writing a song right now. This is magic time. And I was like, but I don't feel like, so I'm like
Yeah.
arguing with myself. So, anyways, I did it. And I just wasn't feeling it. At the time, I was writing these songs and I put together a whole EP. I mean, I went on, like it usually takes a while to make one song. I went and wrote like four of them motherfuckers when I'm tired and not feeling it. But something kept pushing me to do it. And I'm like, I don't really need to be doing this shit. Like, why am I doing this? I have no idea. I'm just following this thing, right? And I started writing these songs, and I'm like not feeling any of them, to be honest. At the time, I listened back to them, and I'm like, man. But then something said, put that shit up on your page, your live page. So I did it anyways, despite my intellectual was saying, you know what, this sounds like garbage. It's not really completed, or it sounds something's off. But I went ahead and put it out, and then I went and took a nap. And I remember I was telling you I slept for like 4 or 5 hours, and I woke up and I went back and listened to the shit. I was like, wow, this shit sounds pretty good though. Like it's not as bad as I thought. I think I was just tired and not feeling it or whatever. And then you won't believe it. I got more downloads, more streams. I made more money off of this little EP project from last weekend from any other project I've ever done. Like, which is really weird because, like I said, I didn't want to do it. I didn't even like it, but for some reason my intuition was telling me, no, you need to write, you need to put this out, you need to put it up, you need to take a nap and come back. And it's like, these are all intuition. I'm not even going to describe it as
Well,
intellectual thing.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's an important aspect when it comes to realizing the difference of feelings and intuition. For one, you don't have any control over it. So if you think you do, you're wrong. That's why I said intuition uses you. All right.
Right. That's why I'm agreeing
the
with you.
fact that
That's
you
why
didn't agree
exactly
with
why.
it, and that,
Yeah. That's why I'm agreeing with you that you're right. Actually, I
yeah,
actually
you were
agree with
like,
you.
no.
Yeah, right. I wasn't using it. I wasn't using it. It was using me. It was like it was making me do things I
Yes,
really wouldn't normally do.
it was shining through you, trying to come through you, and your ego was fighting it. Your ego was saying, nah, that's not the kind of music I normally do, or that's off, because that's your ego.
Yep.
And your intuition was pushing through, and you have no control over that.
Right.
I mean, you could completely fight it, right? And some people do, but those are what you call the uh philosophical zombies. They completely shut it out and fight against it until they're able to do that and close themselves off to it. But you don't never
Oh, you froze. You're
want to get
frozen
to
and
that point. You never
okay, you're back. Well, you're froze now. Yeah. Uh-oh.
want to do that.
Yeah. Are you back? Uh-oh, yeah, she had the technical difficulties. But yeah, man, that's real, man. I really didn't feel like I was making this decision to release this music or whatever, not because I truly, and I felt like that's not the way to do things, but for some reason I just felt compelled to do it, and it actually turned out more successful than anything else I've ever done. I understand there's a lot of different viewpoints, there's a lot of different interpretations of that situation, and others that would point to just coincidences or whatever like that. And then this kind of gets into synchronicity, which is something else I wanted to talk about too. But I know that the name of the show is Feelings, Intuition, and Clearing Up Confusions, but we can kind of also clear up confusions about synchronicity. What is synchronicity, and how does it apply, and things like that? I find that pretty interesting. I started doing a lot of research on synchronicity. I've done that for a while, but I revisited it here lately in preparation for the show because it's kind of related in a way. And it's a contentious subject. A lot of people don't believe in synchronicities. But, we talk about these sort of things all the time. And like I said, I'm open to disagreements, people who want to be contrarian to these ideas. So like and subscribe, um, get updates and join the shows. 100% call in and we can discuss all of these stuff. So you're back, and I was just saying that
Yeah.
the other thing that is a related topic that sort of plays directly into it is synchronicity. And like I said, I had actually last week actually did a lot of research on synchronicity and historical facts regarding it. And what are your thoughts? How do you see synchronicity relating to intuition?
Let's hope this piece of shit technology don't give up again. Synchronicity. Sorry, I'm a foul mouth. Synchronicity, in my experience, is it's a sign that you're aligned with you know infinite consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it can, like, it in a way, it's also like, okay, let's say you're on a certain frequency, right?
Mm-hmm.
and I'm on a certain frequency. If you're intuitive, you may be able to tap into someone else's frequency as well. And then you get a synchronicity whenever that person enters your energy field, so to speak. So, for example, there was this person in my life, and whenever they thought of me or were about to show up, you know, I could sense their energy in my energy, and I would start seeing 1111, 1111 constantly. It got so bad that as soon as I saw the numbers, I would already know this asshole is about to contact me, because he was kind of obsessive. And I would put it through the test with my friend. I would say, man, I just saw 1111. And then it got so bad, it would be accompanied with this weird feeling in my chest. And I would tell my friend, this asshole is about to pop up. And he was harassing me really bad. And sure as shit, he'd either be calling me like minutes later or popping up at my door or something like that, you know? And I was like, what is this trying to tell me? What is this trying to tell me? Well, to make a long story short, I know a lot of people don't believe in this kind of shit, but it kind of is real. He was like that catalyst in my life that mirrored my trauma back to me. And so that's what, if you look at 1111, it's like a mirror, right? 1111. And it was a time period in my life where all the trauma was being pulled up to the surface by this catalyst I was dealing with, who was reflecting my trauma back to me so that I would once and for all deal with it. And so during that time, I kept seeing 1111, 1111, 1111. And it wasn't just that I was aligned with his frequency. That was just what, you know, the underlying reality that I needed to deal with. That's what 1111 represented, that everything is a projection of consciousness. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that sort of makes sense. I was watching an interview with someone who took DMT, and he was shown who himself was, and he looked behind reality, and when he pulled the curtain on reality, the DMT showed him only his own face. And so the impression was that you are the
Yeah.
reality you're looking for. Like, it's right there. It's you. And that's kind of in line with what you're just saying right now.
Yes. And it's so crazy because the dude, he was a life path 3 like me. My son is in Sagittarius and his moon was in Sagittarius. And it was so crazy because we were the same but opposite. And we were literally mirroring each other. It was like my shadow staring back in my face. He was my shadow and I was his sun side. You see what I'm saying? And the darkness that was in him was actually in me. And I had to face those things by looking in the mirror. He was me. He was my shadow. And I hate to say it, but like, he was a sociopath on paper, you know, with homicidal tendencies. And of course, no one wants to admit that we have those kind of tendencies, but some of us do, especially with the trauma that I've experienced as a child. You know, I had those tendencies that I felt like if it came down to it and I had to defend myself, you know, I'll kill you.
I'll kill you. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. Yeah, man. I've looked into that, and one of the few examples kind of stand out to me as like historic examples, like real big historic examples of synchronicity, like the synchronicities between like Alexander Graham Bell and Elisha Gray. And you know, they simultaneously and independently invented the telephone, which is really, really weird. And on the same day, In a striking coincidence, both of those guys filed notices at the United States Patent Office on the same day, which was, I think, February 14th, 1876. So this is
Wow.
history. And regarding their telephone inventions, that application was submitted and described almost exactly the same, and they didn't know each other. They were geographically separated. Bell filed for the patent while Gray filed a caveat, which was a notice of intent to file a patent that same day. So the intention was there, and the technology was similar. So while their designs had like a little bit of differences, they both employed the same exact principles, including using variable resistance to convert like sound waves into electrical signals, you know, frequencies. So, why is this considered synchronicity? I would say it's because of the independent development. Both men were working independently
Mm-hmm.
on a similar problem and arrived at a similar solution around the same exact time. So, there's too many synchronicities, there's too many things that are syncing up, so to speak.
They were definitely tapped into the same frequency in order to come up with the same thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And like the other example I was looking at was like back in 2001, there's this girl named Laura Buxton who had like this balloon incident. This is really weird. So like back in 2001, a 10-year-old girl named Laura, and I think she was in Staffordshire, England, and she released like red balloons with a note asking to return it to Laura Buxton. And then weeks later, the balloon was found 140 miles away by a man who happened to have a 10-year-old neighbor also named Laura Buxton. The two girls met and discovered further
Wow.
remarkable similarities. They were both the same height, wore similar outfits on the same day they met. They wore the same outfit on the same day. And they even owned guinea
That's
pigs
wild.
with similar orange markings on the pigs. And the story is cited as an example of definite synchronicity. Um, so
Yeah,
Carl Jung was right.
that's
Synchronicity is
crazy.
real. Yeah, it's really wild, man. There's so many coincidences in history. Like, have you ever heard the one about what was his name? What was that? Oh yeah, Abraham Lincoln and John F.K. You know, he was riding in a Lincoln, shot in the head. Lincoln was shot in the head. You know, exactly 100 years earlier. There's so many different
That's wild.
secret. Yeah, it's all wild. There's so many different historical examples. So these are considered not coincidences because coincidences may have maybe one really odd thing, but everything else, you know, is not really synchronized. But when you've got like multiple scenarios that are all coming together like that, it is pretty. That's
When you,
synchronicity.
it's just what we do in science. We establish patterns, and once you can make accurate predictions with patterns, you can't just say it's coincidence anymore.
Right, right. There's got to be a difference. You know, that's how we progress. You know, we know the difference between patterns and true synchronicities, man. It's really really
Hmm.
wild stuff, man. But I see them all the time. As you open up to these ideas, you may start to see these things more in your life. Like you said, you have to first of all accept that we're part of a wider, greater consciousness field, and the field is
And
always
sometimes,
appearing to us. You know, it appears to us in so many different
yeah,
ways. It's just for us to open up and look at it. You know.
everything is a reflection back to you. And so when you're seeing things, it's for a reason. It's for a freaking reason. And we're taught to use our rational mind to just make it go away and meaningless and doesn't mean anything, and that's to our own detriment, because when you start seeing synchronicities, you should really listen. You should really
Hmm.
stop and think, why am I seeing this? I've heard of scenarios where a person caught HIV, but they didn't know it, right? And all of a sudden, wherever they went, they started seeing shit about AIDS and HIV, and it'd be flashing on some in front of stores, come in for testing and shit like that. And this person felt like they were being stalked by this and couldn't get away from it and started seeing it everywhere until it dawned on them that they caught it. It was
Mm.
it was a sign reflected back to them that they caught HIV, and when they got tested, they had it.
Oh man, that's a bad way to experience intuition. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, but I
And
mean, on the bright
synchronicity.
side, that person is still around. They were able to get on meds early, and in that sense, it saved their life.
Yeah, yeah, very true. It can really work to your benefit, and some of the historic things um, showing synchronicity or examples of synchronicity. Sometimes they're dark, and it's
Yeah,
just really
because
evil.
as human beings, we kind of don't learn. We tend not to learn until we're on the brink of destruction. And so that's what it took for that person to finally pay attention.
Hmm. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's just how we are. We don't pay shit any mind until it affects us directly. And then we finally look and say, "Oh wow, what is this trying to tell me?" But while you're feeling good and you're not worried about shit, what's the point of paying attention to these things? We don't really pay attention until it's damn near too late.
yeah. And you just have to pay attention. And sometimes you try to rationalize things away. And I think everybody
Mhm.
has certain experiences, like you're thinking of someone, and then all of a sudden you're contacting that person. Could be like
Exactly.
a call or encountering them in person shortly after just thinking about them, or like
Yep.
repeating numbers, like you said, 1111 444.
Yep. That's happened to
Sometimes
me.
sometimes I hear relevant music, like I'm listening to a song that seems to comment or relate to a current thought or
Yes.
a situation. Have you ever done that?
All the time. Oh my God. Or a song would I would come across a song that's talking exactly about what I'm fucking going through. I'm like, are you serious? Like
Yeah, man, it's weird.
people think, like, people have told me, man, you listen to all kinds of music that doesn't even go together. And I'm like, man, I listen to what I resonate with. Like I'm a real big electronic head. That's what I listen to mostly, but there's a lot of other shit that I listen to too. But a lot of times, like, believe it or not, I listen to music intuitively. I may
Mm,
have a week where I'm listening to nothing but uplifting, upbeat type of music that just kind of keeps my energy up. But
mhm,
then if something's going on in my life, all of a sudden I'm coming across music that addresses that. And
mhm,
then my genre completely switches for that week. And I'm like on this Tool trip or something, some other
mm,
type of shit. And then it's like I don't listen to music by saying, "Oh, I want to listen to this now and I want to listen to that now." It just kind of flows through me. It just, whatever resonates with me is what appears to me.
mhm,
It's really weird.
mhm. It is, man, and it's so if you really pay attention to it and you don't try to rationalize it away, it can really add up in your life, and you start seeing it everywhere. But
Yes.
and I understand, like, you have to be careful. Like, sometimes if you're trying to, like, I don't know, buy or purchase something, or you're out to get some specific thing, like maybe a car, or you're about to buy a particular car or a particular outfit or whatever it is, then all of a sudden you start seeing this thing everywhere in public. You start
Yeah.
seeing that car, you start seeing that outfit being worn.
It's so
It's like,
funny.
it's weird, it's like, why am I all of a sudden seeing this shit everywhere I go? And a lot of people say, well, you're just kind of primed to see it now because it started becoming part of your focus.
Right.
But
I mean, that's
but
part of it too. That can be a
mhm.
part of it, but that's not all there's to it.
Yeah, some synchronicities are a little bit more elaborate than that. And that's where
Yeah.
I can tell the difference. Like, you can be sort of hesitant to say, well, I wanted this car, now I see it everywhere, so that's the universe telling me to buy this car or whatever. Not necessarily. It could just be that you're seeing it now because it's always on your mind. And these cars were always around. It's just that you didn't decide to start. They really weren't part of your peripheral until it became your focus. So it's kind of like that
Yeah, but
mirror.
you could also say, why was it your focus to begin with? So, or you could be manifesting that, but there may
Yeah.
be there may be a reason why you started focusing on it.
Yeah. Like I'm open to it all, man. Like, um, so many people try to rationalize things away, and they have this real scientific way of thinking about everything, and so it's like easy to dismiss so much, and what you're doing is you're just limiting yourself, you're limiting your
Everything
data,
is science,
everything.
really.
It
Everything is
is.
science.
Yeah, it's all
It's just that
natural.
they the conventional science just limits it, and that's unfortunate.
I just saw a video this morning with Sabina Hassenfelder. You know, she's always, and she keeps coming up with this stuff. I'm starting to think maybe she's going to become an idealist because
She might.
she keeps pushing it closer and closer like the one we saw last week. But it's like she's always pushing it. Like this time, she's talking about how um, science will never find a theory of everything because within the theory itself, you can't even define what would constitute a truth or an axiom as proven. So it's all sort of self refuting at the end of the day. And she's just saying that all you really have is your experience of the world, and you're always thinking
Sounding
and
like an
trying to make,
idealist.
yeah, like talking. She starts talking like an idealist again, and I'm like,
It's
they're all
inevitable.
doing that now, though.
It's
If you look at,
inevitable when
yeah,
because
yeah,
when
yeah,
if you think about it, they're just doing what every ordinary person does. They're searching for the truth. We're all looking for God,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's inevitable in her field.
yep.
You know, she's gonna have epiphany after epiphany. The more she dives into these topics, and it's just inevitable. She just don't know it yet.
Yeah, I mean, she even said, she's like, the problem is if you really want to start playing that skepticism person game, if you really want to take that serious and you really start doing that, it just might lead you to places you never thought you'd end up. And
That's
she said
right.
that's the problem. She goes, like, we think we're so smart because we're skeptical and we do science, and then you start using it against your own shit, and then you
Well,
realize, uh-oh.
the skepticism is what causes you to think deeper. So skepticism is good,
Yep.
because if you're automatically content with everything that runs across your screen, you know, and you just take everything at face value, you're not ever going to make an effort to actually look deeper. You're just, like most people, unconscious and going with the status quo. But when you're skeptical, that's a very good thing. It's just like how we
Yeah.
say there's no wrong question. And when children ask questions, it's the same thing. You're supposed to be skeptical. You're supposed to, question everything, because that's what leads you to dig deeper.
Yeah, yeah. Like I was in a conversation with what I would call a pseudo skeptic. He was somebody who's skeptical only up until it
And
starts getting in
bias
the
as
way.
fuck.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like he's only skeptical until it starts getting in the way of his beliefs. Now you're taking the skepticism too
Yeah,
far.
right. I see
I'm
those
like,
all the time.
yeah,
You're so skeptical, but you're
yeah,
biased as fuck, ready to fucking kill somebody when they don't
agreed.
for agree with your belief system. You're not a
Exactly.
skeptic. You have a belief system.
Yeah, it's like this guy told me yesterday. He was like, well, he goes, the only thing that means anything, Scott, is when you can verify. It's called the verification principle. It means absolutely nothing unless you can verify it. Okay. And I said, okay. So how did you verify the verification principle? And he goes, well, now you're taking skepticism too far. It's like, it's like, no, no, it's called consistency. I'm looking for consistency. And he's like, yeah, well, I'm just not going to talk to you anymore. You're too.
Whatever.
It was like, okay.
That's funny as shit.
Yeah,
Mm-mm-mm.
it doesn't work that way, buddy. But and yeah, you should be skeptical on everything, but you shouldn't be so skeptical that you don't see your nose, in front of you. It's like there has to be a balance. Like you have to actually know the difference between something you can call a fact or a truth, and between that thing that may not be, like something questionable. And like we always say, the one thing that we do know is our own personal subjective private experience. We know that that exists as an experience. We can be skeptical about our thoughts about it, our beliefs about it, but one thing we can't deny is experience, and that should be the root of our epistemology, at least in my view. And as long as it is, I think you can be valid. You can make valid beliefs, valid conclusions, and stuff like that. But there's these people who just they don't trust experience whatsoever, yet they're using their own experience to even make that statement. They just don't know it. You can't use personal experience. That's a cop out. How do you know? Well, in my experience, blah blah blah. Like,
Everybody,
okay,
anyone has is their experience. That's I don't even know
yeah,
what's. Hold on, what's this man fucking blabbering about? Hold on for a second.
okay,
I'm a mute myself. Alex is yelling from the back. I don't
okay,
know.
okay. Well, yeah, like so I have like a little thesis about that, like religion versus scientism and the third way, and basically, I started looking at this thing called psychologism, which is how we ought to think, this idea how you ought to think, what is the proper way of thinking. So the linguistic term analytical philosophy, some published meanings to words that make sense, and it's shared. So shared because it talks about our shared world. Linguistic meaning, meaning, the words that you use, as long as they're structured the right way. So kind of like logic became a science based on public meanings, right? And structures of meaning are called philosophically analyzed. So logic became more focused on structure rather than content. Like mathematics, for example, was reduced to language, but failed under Russell's paradox, which is infinity and things like that, different paradoxes, the Russell paradox. Then they came up with like logical positivism, which dismisses anything that cannot be observed through the methods of science. So that's where we get the verification principle. But how can this principle be verified? If it is true, then it's self defeating. So it's a contradiction. So this led to the principle of toleration. And this leads to like a plurality of truths. Like, how can we verify which ones are true, though? So they all mean different things. And so the thought here is that they can all be unified under some complex physical claim. For example, all science can be reduced linguistically and physically to properly scientific observation. Like respiration can be described as breathing, but it can also be scientifically reduced to particles bouncing all around. So there's two ways of talking about the same truth. So then theory choice is like by Thomas Kuhn, this philosopher, who says that science progresses, then it stagnates, then it explodes into a revolution for finding a powerful way to understanding reality. And so when you're faced with a choice, it is made on the grounds other than verification, but by its overall strength. So the theory is easy to apply in a more aesthetic, Occam's razor sort of way, like the simplest explanation wins. It's more beautiful. That's another way of approaching these things. But then that kind of led to scientism. So like by the 2000s, scientism sort of won over. And if you like think about like the new atheist movement started coming around that time. So it's like science proves everything. So now atheism took hold of that, and then debates on God seemed to be decided on scientific terms. That is, like, the thinking accepted by both sides, not just the religious, but also the atheists. They said science is the whole thing. So they use things like fine tuning, morality, ethics. All of this is addressed by theism more than science. But this is a mistake, they would say. The response is to double down on, scientism. Consciousness, free will, they're illusions. Consciousness doesn't exist. Your thinking doesn't exist. You just think it does. And universe is mechanical, not alive. It's not idealistic. There are no objective truths. The death of God continues. And so experience doesn't matter as much as objective facts of the physical world, the cold facts. And experience only gets in the way of doing science and finding truth. But this is so self-limiting, like Sophia said,
Mm-hmm.
And it's just,
Also, when
yeah,
it
go ahead.
comes to, sorry, uh, it's limiting, and we haven't gotten anywhere, with the conventional materialistic view. For example, a materialist view.
Mhm.
We haven't gotten anywhere with it. We're not solving the hard problem of consciousness. And I think we're asking a lot of the wrong questions. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And we're approaching it with the wrong concepts. Like, we're just automatically assuming that matter is primary, that this appearance of an outside world is actually the foundation that leads to our experience of the world,
That
which is
does
totally ass backwards.
it just is. It's ass backwards, man. And I'm not a Bible thumper, but there are true things in the Bible. And it speaks of for example, in the last days, everything's going to be upside down. They'll call good evil, evil good. And, essentially that's what we're talking about. Everything's ass backwards. We're made to believe that the reality that is being engineered for us is reality. And it's just a false reality. It really is. And that's why I try not to get into this false paradigm anymore, arguing about the left and the right and all this kind of shit.
Mhm.
It's engineered. It's a false reality that's being engineered for us. And that's what that scripture is talking about. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean I'm a Christian. So I'm not a Christian by any means. But like I said, there are true things in the Bible, and I like to refer to those things sometimes, just like I may use another philosophical quote from somewhere else. And then there is also this scripture about, which goes in line with what we're talking about, the difference between intuition and feelings. It says the heart can be desperately wicked. Who can know it? In other words, your emotions are constantly manipulated. And this is how they manipulate your reality. This is how they sell you reality in this package of what it's supposed to be. They do this by pressing your buttons with all these ideologies, and everyone thinks they're on the right side of history. And, they trigger you constantly over and over and over. When George Floyd was murdered in front of this crowd of people, that's how they do that shit on purpose, to trigger you out into the street and start fighting for social justice, when the whole time they set that shit up. They just play games with people to keep you in this consumerism state of mind, and all you are is feeding the machine, and all you do is feeding the machine, and all you are is a consumer. And after a while, I don't know, I started feeling disgusted with myself. I was like, I feel like this gluttonous consumer. All I do is consume, consume, consume.
Mhm.
Where if I'm not eating, I'm consuming social media. If I ain't consuming social media, like, it just feels so unfulfilling.
Yeah.
It's almost like how an addiction feels within this paradigm. You have to constantly feed yourself with these ideologies and the fucked up food we're eating and everything that comes with it. We're dependent on medications. We don't even know how to live healthy anymore. We don't even know the right shit to eat anymore. You know, like we're
Yeah.
forgetting how to do anything on our own, and we're reliant on this consumerism, just like a baby is reliant on their mother, you know, and it started making me feel like I have no sovereignty. I'm a complete fucking slave. And I
Yeah.
hate it. I hate it. I hate this shit. You know,
And
it's
that's how they hack into your emotions,
yeah.
which informs your feelings about things, which informs your behavior. And so it's like we're all under this psyop, this huge psyop that's going on in history, where we're all being emotionally manipulated by the system to serve their needs, to serve their purposes, like politicians, even when, I would say every space employs that psyop, like even the music industry these days, they employ the
Everything.
psyop. It's like you have to like this artist, which may be garbage if you were to objectively look at it. Maybe before you were infected by the psyop, you may say, well, this artist here, I would never listen to. Like there's this song out that all they do is, what was it called, the dooba dooba doo, whatever, dooba dooba doo. It's the stupidest song in the world that comes, a rap song, dooba dooba doo, dooba dooba doo. It's like, what? And it's like people love it, the kids love it. It's like,
Mumble rap.
yeah, something like that. It's not even mumble rap. It's like even worse than that. It's like they're not saying anything sensible, and people love it. And the only reason they love it is because they bang people on the head with it all the time,
It's a
and they encourage.
reflection of how unconscious people are too. Like the people don't
Exactly.
even resonate with anything meaningful anymore.
Right. Right. And I know I'm old. I might just be an old head talking whatever. Like they say the same thing about my music back in the 80s and
Yeah, but
90s.
old can also mean wisdom. So I mean, I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Or you're
Right.
old. Yeah, that means I know more than you idiot.
Yeah, you idiot.
Like,
Exactly. Sometimes being older is
and
just
then
better. Let's just face it. That's just the truth. Sometimes the old people do have it
exactly
right.
like
They even a clock is right at least twice a day. Come on
yeah.
now.
One thing is for sure, they have a little more experience than your little pissy ass that's still in diapers.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's just
And also, I wanted to bring something up.
mhm.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I
Go ahead.
realized that some people that are watching, they may say, "Well, who is they? Who is they? Y'all some conspiracy theory?" And I'm like, well, well, they, in my opinion, is okay. So, as an idealist, right, we say that consciousness is fundamental, right? And we don't believe in some perfect God that can do no wrong. We believe that consciousness unravels itself. And as it unravels itself, it discovers parts of itself and observes itself. So there are parts to consciousness that are not as aware as other parts. That's just like how, as human beings, our psyche is always unraveling. We unravel ourselves as we go along. And then we go through different phases, we go through different stages, we mature, some of us don't. So think of the elitists, these they people, think of them as the people who don't want to evolve, who don't want to work through trauma. They want to stay stagnant and they want to avoid their own karma and not confront it. They just see reality as this big ass playground. You're just here to consume and fulfill your desires. And it's just a big old party. Like, why should we have to work? They want leisurely lives. They don't want to suffer. They don't accept suffering as a part of reality. They don't accept death as a part of reality. But the only way that you could sustain that, you have to do that on the backs of other people. So that's how imperialism was born and slaves came about. Because in order for me to never do nothing and never lift a finger and just party and have a leisurely life, I have to enslave other people for me to be able to do that perpetually and use you to do all the hard labor and work and whatever. You know what I'm saying? So in other words, the they people that I speak of, they're people like you and me. They're not some kind of supernatural beings, but they're operating from a whole nother state of awareness, a whole different,
I was even
level.
gonna say and kind of double down on that to say that actually the they that we're speaking about is each and every one of us, because sometimes it's not even just carrying the bone. Sometimes it's our own ideas and our own intelligence at work to meet a certain. I mean, look at it. I go to work every day. I deal with people, and I'm not exaggerating, people
Mm.
that are out to get you. Okay, let's just be honest. There's people, unfortunately, in this world that are just out to get you for whatever reason. Maybe they don't like the way you act or talk or hang around certain people, certain races of people, whatever. And they can look at you as the other, like, hey, this dude's not black or this dude's not white, but he's hanging around these black people or he's hanging around these white. He's not fitting in. So automatically their flags go up, and in their mind, you become the enemy. That's possibility. I'm not saying that's always the case. I'm just
It's
saying
that
that that's
separation that
there's got to be a reason. You know what I mean? Like there's got to be some kind of reason behind it. But what I've come to learn through embracing these ideas that we're talking about is that, yeah, we understand that the elites and the people out there are using psyops to get what they want out of us and use us and keep us enslaved and all of that. But guess what? You can also do the same thing to them. And so what I've started doing, and I've kind of learned for a few years now, is that, and people tell me this all the time at work, they're like saying, damn, you know how to get along with people. You know how to negotiate that situation to where it went smooth or it went to your favor. But they said, but you did it by being fake and phony. They'll look at it that way because they'll say, because I know you, Scott, when we talk and we're around and we're doing things,
thank you.
Smoking there didn't want to come on the adventure with me here at
it's
all.
like you talk a certain way, you behave a certain way, but when you get around them, you're not like that. And yet you've taken that and turned it into your favor. And I just tell them, well, that's just called being smart. Like
Yeah.
that's just using what you got to do. You know, it's like using what you know to your advantage. And yeah, it's a psyop. I'm not even gonna lie. It's like I do use certain triggers, emotional things that I say, things that are keywords, power words, things I've learned over the years through my experience in sales. Like I did high pressure sales for years. And they teach you all these things. They teach you the skills for manipulation. It's even called that. They've got books, they've got chapters where I went through. It says how to manipulate the customer. Like they actually say that straight up. And then they go through all these kind of dark ways of manipulating people's reptilian brain in order to affect their feelings to get them to buy and do what you want. And these things work. And so I've employed these things in everyday life because think about it. Every day, everyone has to sell themselves every day somehow. You know, you have to sell yourself out of a problem, sell yourself into an advantage. You have to talk to people, you have to relate to people, you have to resonate, and you employ these psyop techniques. And so, yeah, I agree with you. The they isn't just these supernatural beings that a lot of these pseudo spiritual people talk about, but actually, it's just all of us. It's just everybody's fallen into this way of the game. Like there's rules to this game.
Yeah, I would just say that there's a subset of people that just kind of mastered that and they're just severely stuck in that. But that could be any one of us too.
Hey, look,
Wow,
someone trying.
Al,
Isn't that a nice thing to say?
you finally being nice to me. Why? Because I'm Why? I'm suspicious.
My intuition is telling me something.
Hey, Al. Nice for popping in.
Yeah, man.
Nice for
Absolutely.
popping in. That's not even English.
Yeah. Caleb wasn't able to make it. He said hopefully he'll be able to listen a little bit to the
Yeah, I
show.
was wondering where he is because he's, our faithful
Mm-hmm. Call in
watcher.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. But it's an interesting topic. I hope it, it does get views and we do have interaction, because I think it's very important in understanding and helping each other. Because look, one thing I believe is, even a lot of the skeptics and a lot of the people in today's life think that logic is everything. Like, emotion is garbage, logic is everything, but even logic is based on emotion.
I
You
don't
know,
know about that because I'm very logical. I feel dissed here. No.
I'm saying, like, you can be logical about anything that you feel strongly about. Like,
I
you can
think,
use,
sorry.
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think I would put it this way. Being raised in Germany, we're very logical. But, emotions do serve a purpose. But we just got to make sure that our emotions are pure and in alignment with our intuition. So I think when you're just purely logical, though, sometimes that can lead to having no compassion and just being too much like a machine, you know.
Hmm.
And I think that's I mean, logic, I believe, is A1. Logic is the shit. But you can't just have logic, because logically, if you're an asshole, right? You're an asshole, I'm going to treat you like shit. But then my compassion may say, well, yeah, that's logical, but maybe that person's going through some things. Maybe you don't need to handle it that way, because you being an asshole back to them, what is that going to lead to? So then we use reasoning as well, right? And compassion and things like that. So I think that logic is great, but it can't just be just logic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like that kind of logic you're talking about, it's like it's based on words and the way we use language.
Yeah,
Like, so people say it's what he said was logical. Like, you can say what he said was just logical. But what happens is logic does not address tone of voice. It does not include body language. It doesn't include energy that you're giving out.
right. It's
Because
not the
my
whole
boss,
picture.
look, my boss can tell me things that, if I just were to read it off a transcript in a courtroom, people would say, I don't see anything wrong that he said or whatever. But if you were there and you saw the way he said it, the tone, the context, all of that, oh, they're just being an asshole right now. You
Yeah,
know what I
it's
mean?
just not
Like,
it's not the whole picture. I mean, logic,
right,
it's just
right.
another tool that we can use to arrive at really good conclusions, but it's not the whole picture,
Mm-hmm.
you
And
know.
yeah, and there's different forms of logic based on different frameworks. Like, there's a logic that can kind of talk about tone of voice and body language, and you can, because we use that. Like, say, when like, say if you're having a problem with your boyfriend, and maybe what he said was not really illogical, but and I know and everybody else knows what the hell he's really trying to say or
Right.
really
If
trying to
you
do.
know him or if you
If you
know the
know, right.
circumstances.
So
So
you're
you
using
don't see.
logic. So you're using a logic beyond the words. You're applying logic to something even more broad than that to come down to the truth. And that's where logic can sort of apply, in
Yeah,
even greater
and
ways.
logic just can definitely fail when you don't have all the facts.
Right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Because, like, materialists, if materialists were to ignore, like the Planck scale, or ignore, like, the conscious being primary, if you were to, like, ignore these two fundamental things, then yeah, their worldview kind of makes sense. It's like you can kind of see the sense and you can understand why people think that way, and most people are. But it's because there's information, data you're not really incorporating or you're factoring into to understand what the truth may be. Like, we understand the hard problem. There's people that don't even know what the fucking hard problem of consciousness is. So how do you expect,
I didn't know either.
how do you expect people like that don't even know what the hard problem of consciousness is to see a problem with materialism? You know, you can't really say they're stupid or illogical. It's just that they don't really know.
They just have missing information.
Mm-hmm.
But see, that's also the thing about language that fucks me up. You know, some things or a lot of things or most things, shit, I just know intuitively. And a lot of times too much language fucks me up because it's like makes it complicated. And I'm like, I have a hard time remembering a lot of this stuff, like everybody's name and who coined this term and that term. And I'm like, God damn, y'all making this shit kind of complicated, you know? And
well, remember that time we saw that video with Sadhguru, and he was around all these intellectual type people.
yeah.
and he turned around and said, and they said, well, what are your thoughts on reading through the essays of this scholar and that scholar? And he goes, well, honestly, I try not to read into any of that shit because
You know, and
all it does is
me.
clutter my thinking. Like, I don't want all that confusion. I just know what I know. I don't need all that shit.
I can relate to him because I've read some papers and essays and whatnot. I mean, of course, I read a lot, but sometimes I read all that shit, and then at the end of it, and I'm like, and all that to say the sky's blue. You fucking asshole.
Exactly.
I feel like you just robbed me of precious time. Like, you could have just said that shit.
Yeah. And you had put up a post earlier this week that I really liked. It was something about, it was from that Buddhist site. It was about beliefs of God and stuff like that. And it was saying, like, sometimes we get so much into questioning, does God exist? And we go over all the different arguments and thoughts and ideas. And at the end of the day, all it's done is rob you of time and peace. And
yeah,
it's like you're not focused on what you really need to be focused on. Instead,
like we ask sometimes the wrong questions that lead to more confusion and chaos, because now you're obsessed with like the whole thing about infinite regress. If there is a God, then who made God? And then who made that God? And who made that God? Those type of questions do not lead to peace, because I've been there. Trust me, that shit will drive your ass fucking crazy. So there's a point where you have to ask different questions. Like, for example, how can I achieve peace? How can I learn not to give a fuck about things that I can't change? Stuff like that.
Yeah, you can't prove it one way or the other. So why fucking worry so much about it and argue with people and lose your peace and sanity around? Like, I saw this Tony had showed me this one video. There's these you know how there's a lot of in the Black consciousness community is what they call it. He was saying, and he was showing me this video. It says, because there's a lot of people that, especially in the Black community, the conscious community, they talk about, the pyramids were created by Black people. The space aliens are going to save Black people and, from the shit that's going on. And you've got these other beliefs that, like, the Grand Canyon, and, all of this kind of stuff. And the guy was like, he goes, what's wrong with the Black community right now with us? We're too worried about some bullshit that we can never prove. Like, we stop worrying about how to build our community, educate our kids, take care of our families, take care of our community, and build up as a people. So instead, what do? We run away from reality and we start focusing on shit like space aliens and spaceships coming back to the Earth to get us, and pyramids were created by them, and blah, 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 blah. He goes, none of this shit really matters and it's not proven. So, dude, stop fucking telling me about all this bullshit, things I can't prove, because I can prove the the bullshit that's going on in our community, thanks to heroin and flocka being put into our neighborhoods. I can talk about how they broke our families up, and they created all this division within our community. I can prove all that shit. What I
Well,
can't prove is all this other bullshit that you want to distract me with, instead of focus on things we need to start really working on, you know.
I mean, okay, the guy has a point, but I have to kind of take up for Black people now. And just imagine that you're an orphan. You never met your parents. One day you find out, you know, your parents just didn't want your ass, or whatever the case may be. And even though you've had the nicest foster parents, you had a really good life, that, you know, that thing inside of you that wants to know where you came from can cause you to not even focus on the present moment. It makes you want to know your roots, where you came from. And that's just, it's a result of slavery. You're in America, you know, everything looks not like you. And it's a lack of being able to identify with something.
Right.
So they desperately, I'm not trying to separate myself from Black people, but I don't really do that. But they trying to find a way to identify with their roots, because getting in touch with your roots is very important, because depending on, you know, what your roots are, you may be prone to certain things. You may need to be able to express yourself in certain ways. And it just kind of fucks with you really truly knowing yourself. So when I came from Germany, you know, I had a similar experience in Germany. I mean, I had a good life. People were really nice, but there was just this thing inside of me that wanted to know where the hell I came from. And then when I came to America and I researched my family tree and reunited with my biological Black side of the family and stuff, and my Native American roots and stuff, that's when I got a lot of clarity about how I am, you know. Because like, even when you go to the doctor, it's kind of important to know your family history, what you're prone to. Diabetes may run in your family. You know, we want to know those patterns, because you can make better decisions in life once you know these patterns. So displacing people and completely disconnecting them from their roots leads to that type of shit. And that is a symptom, you know.
And then, yeah, and you can chew bubble gum and walk at the same time. Like, you can do both. And then too, you know, but I think the overall point is, like, at the end he says we might as well go back to fucking Jesus then. You know, it's like,
No,
that's the
I'm not.
whole, you
I'm
know,
not
it's like,
saying. I'm
yeah,
not
it's
saying
like,
he's. I'm not saying he's wrong. He's right
yeah,
in what he's perceiving, but I'm saying that, you know, like you said, we can do both. We can focus on the moment, and we can also try to get back in touch with our roots.
right,
You know.
right. And you don't have to use it as a form of escapism, like, you know, because one thing he was saying that I was really honing in on, he was saying that, like, most of these people I talk to, none of them do anything for the Black community. None of them are actually out there doing anything. They're just talking. They're just talking about bullshit. Like he says, you know, like that fucking guy that talks about, you know, they got owned by Wes Huff, that
Yeah.
you know,
Billy
Billy
Carson.
Carson, yeah. He goes, like, Billy Carson, he sits there and makes a lot of money off the Black community talking all that shit. But meanwhile, he hasn't done anything. He doesn't have any sort of programs to help the Black community or anything like that. But he's supposed to be a staunch supporter. But the only thing he's really supporting is his own bank account
His wallet.
and his wallet. And it's like, we don't want to see that shit. We don't want to believe that. We'd rather believe the aliens are coming down to save us rather than some real shit that we can
Yeah, and
control.
what's the difference between that than thinking that Jesus has to come back to save you? I mean,
Right. He says, and we think that we're so enlightened because we've replaced Jesus with the aliens. Like, are we really being
but see,
serious?
that's the whole thing I'm saying. It goes back to it's an identity crisis. You know, Black people want to be able to identify with something. Not having anything to identify with, it leads to that. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like, oh well, we're just gonna paint Jesus black, and then that makes it truer. You know?
Yeah. And it's like you said, it's all kind of rooted in feelings. It's like there's this cultural, as a people, as a culture, there's this feeling of, unfairness, inequity, lost history, lost identity. There's this feeling that comes up of emptiness and anger and resentment, and they're looking for ways to make sense of it all. And so, based on these feelings, they come up with all these sort of theories and beliefs. Like
Yeah.
maybe we've rejected Jesus because we kind of learned that was all bullshit. So now we're going to say the space aliens or whatever. And it's like, but are we really dealing with our feelings? Are we really, like, I understand that that's where it's rooted in, but what's the best way to deal with those feelings?
Well, the way that I like to deal with them nowadays, like I used to be on autopilot and I would not really address my feelings, which was not the right way. Because we want to shield ourselves from pain, right? But honestly, you have to feel that shit, you know? You have to feel it, work through it, address it, and just work with it. Be kind to yourself, have compassion on yourself. Because I mean, I even have a problem crying.
Yeah, me too.
To the point where I know I need to cry, but it's like I can't, because I trained myself to just keep going. Crying is a fucking weakness. If I sit here and fucking cry, that ain't gonna fix shit. I just gotta keep going. And that's just not the way to go, because you're neglecting something that needs to be attended to. So we have to learn to be able to feel the feelings, don't dismiss them, but at the same time also be rational when it comes to evaluating your feelings, and make sure that you're dealing with them and evaluate them honestly, because like you could be triggered by something from the past and it's not necessarily what's going on right now. And then this is how you get caught in a trauma loop. So you got to see, is this actually the same thing, or does it just seem that way? Like, don't ignore your feelings and be dismissive of them, but evaluate them and work through them. That's the best advice I can give you.
Yeah, I feel that a lot. Because sometimes problems are a lot less hard to deal with if you first of all just embrace them head on. Like, sometimes when we just try to stuff it down or sweep it under the rug, we're really doing is we're putting
You're
off.
masking. You're
Yeah, you're
masking
masking
symptoms.
it. Yeah, you're masking the stuff, and you're putting off the resolution because you can't
Right.
solve a problem that you don't recognize. You have to sort of see it for what it is, embrace it, let it have its full head-on damage to your psychology. Let it hit you, and then
Yeah.
you'll see the problem sort of dissolves away after you've embraced the feeling. Now what can it do? It's done the worst it can do.
And
So
that's why
now,
crying is important. I
mhm.
don't care if you got to strip butt naked and scream and run up the street, whatever you got to do.
Well,
Don't do that though. Whatever you got to do to let it out. And I had a problem with that. Like, I couldn't fucking cry. I felt it welling up inside, and I knew it needed to come out, but I couldn't. So I just kind of redirected it into like working hard, or, being a workaholic and never stopping. And that's not good, man. That shit will fuck you up in the end.
man, talking about synchronicity. It's like this. I had a father-in-law on my first marriage, and we were talking about crying and stuff like that, and he was like, "Well, it's in the Bible, man." He goes, "Let me ask you something. What's the shortest verse in the Bible?" And
Jesus
I said,
wept.
Jesus wept. Jesus wept." He goes, that's the thing. There ain't
It's
no
true.
shame in crying. Jesus wept. And when you're feeling bad, it's just like when Isaac, was Abraham was going to give up his son Isaac to God as a sacrifice.
Mhm.
God came in the form of a ram.
That
The
sounds so
ram,
weird.
because that's the ram. The ram came. So whenever you're faced with hardship, remember, um, God produces a ram. There's a ram in the bush. He said, when you feel sad, there's a ram in the bush. When there's a
What? Hold up, man. I'm confused now. I understood the whole Jesus wept, but what's up with the ram in the bush?
ram in the bush. So remember, Abraham had to sacrifice his son Isaac by killing him as a human sacrifice to
I
Yahweh.
remember
Remember
that.
that? Okay. So before he plunged the knife in his chest, God saved his son by presenting a ram that Abraham could present to God instead of his son. So he spared his son from being as a human sacrifice.
So he
So
had to give a different sacrifice.
yeah, so he gave the ram. God said, you can use the ram instead of your son. So he's like, oh, thank you, God, for I don't have to kill my son. I can offer the ram to you. So on many, many sermons, a lot of preachers use that as an example of how God comes through for you. Like whenever you feel stressed, anxious, sad, depressed, remember there's a ram in the bush. God presents a ram in the
Wow.
bush to save you,
I'm just kind of stuck on what that actually means now, because I know it doesn't mean a ram, an actual ram.
Yeah, it's just it's an analog. It's just the metaphor for God giving you a way out. God gives you a way out. You don't have to, kill yourself.
So in
You
other
can,
words, if you feel defeated, just know that
there's a
there is
ram in the bush.
another way around it, right?
Yep, yep. There's another
Okay.
way. God will provide an answer. You know, so
It's
there's a
probably
ram in the bush.
my German doesn't register shit like that. I'm like, what? Ram in the bush. Like Flula, he's like, why do people say such things as a camel toe? No, a camel toe? You bring a camel toe to party?
You're
So
just like that guy.
you gotta understand that's how my brain goes.
Exactly. Hold on a second. Ram in the bush. I think I saw a video on that.
Never heard that before either.
Yeah,
Ram in
hold
the
on.
bush.
Yeah, I've got a cool video that kind of out. Probably it'll be explained better this way. Hold on. Oh, and by the way, Brooklyn Lou invited me to do an interview with him. So
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe me and you could show up for that.
When
And
is he trying to do it?
he said it's up to me at the time. So I said, I'm free whenever. But I was just now thinking it would be a good idea if we both did it, and we represent, man. We represent the discussion.
Yeah, I don't mind. I should have time. I mean, currently I'm a housewife and I do a lot. So don't get me wrong, but I should be able to squeeze that in.
Yeah, you've got your womanly duties, huh?
You see my eyeball?
Let me see. Hold on, I'm looking.
You see that? When
No.
that you see when that
Oh yeah, that
thing
sinus.
when that goes up,
Yeah.
dude got one more time, man.
Got one more damn time. And my womanly duty is gonna be to whoop your ass. That's gonna be my womanly duty.
I already threatened his ass with not washing his clothes. And
Uh-oh.
he said, no.
Dude, I'm gonna see. Hold on if I can find this. This is really good though.
After this, I do have to get off of here today because I
Can't
promised my daughter we're going swimming at the lake.
swimming. Yeah. Absolutely. It's gonna be a short show today because I need to get out of this house, and I'm also thinking. I don't know if I'm gonna do it, but I need to go to the gym and go swimming, man.
Did you see me yesterday? I actually went to
Yeah,
the gym.
I saw that. So how has that been going?
So it's only day 3, but I'm slightly sore today, but I'm just gonna keep doing it and get better at it. And because I used to be very athletic, but hysterectomy and old age is starting to catch up with me. So I was like, man, I gotta do something. I don't feel at my best. So I just felt motivated. My son actually motivates me a lot. Say hi.
Yeah.
She just he been dragging my ass to the gym, and I'm very grateful that he did because yeah, I need it.
Hey, Caesar. He said
Hey,
he's back.
Caesar.
I'm back and I'm gone. So I guess he had to dip out. I don't know. But if you want to call in, you can. If not, we're gonna cut the show short so we can enjoy our weekend and do other things. We don't have too many callers in today, so
Well, it's the weekend. People probably doing things, summer solstice, and
do the thing.
do the thing.
Do the thing. When you come across our channel, like and subscribe and do the thing.
We still love y'all, even if y'all not in here right now.
Yeah.
Hey, in a way, it kind of feels good because it be getting wild. We be having like 9 chats in here,
You ain't
9
kidding,
people at
man.
once.
I know, man. It gets really swamped. And it's like trying to manage the conversation because everybody wants to talk at once and everybody wants to address things and and everybody's got different views, somehow. And that's cool, but it just creates like this whole, situation.
It gets hectic.
It gets hectic, man. Yeah,
Kind
it
of
really does.
overloads my connection too. Seems like sometimes because like today I'm having a much smoother experience and it's only the 2 of us.
Right. And so, yeah, so like I said, we're gonna try to do this interview on Brooklyn Lou the Skeptic's channel. I'm gonna put up a little post here in the live chat. So you can go to his channel on YouTube. I'm gonna promote him too. So if you want to go check him out, he's really cool guy, man. He's really tolerant, very easygoing. And
Yeah, he's great.
he's a great guy. And he's been on our channel a few times. And yeah, so we look forward to it, man, to kind of talk to him and reach his audience, maybe let them know who we are, what we're all about. That's really cool stuff. But I cannot find this one video I was looking for. Unfortunately, we just kind of started talking about that. But
Ram in the bush, man.
ram in the bush, when you're feeling bad, there's always a ram in the bush.
Hey, at least I learned something new today.
Yeah.
I'm always learning like American sayings and stuff. And believe it or not, like there's so much stuff I've never heard before, and people think because I don't have much of an accent that I automatically know all this stuff, but I really don't.
Because right.
There's so many different sayings, and then when you go to different states, like if you go to Illinois, people say completely different things, and then you go to Texas and people say completely different things. Like it's always something new.
Yeah, it's very regional. Like the South has its own, slang and its own vibe down here.
Yeah,
As
like in
opposed to, like,
Texas, they say this shit that I still can't say it right, but something like Oviander or some shit. Yonder.
Oh, yonder. Yeah.
I didn't know that, man. And they would say that, and I'm like, what the hell are they saying? They just mean, over there.
Yeah, over there.
And
over yonder.
I'm like, what the fuck is over yonder? Like, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
country.
understand. I don't understand his damn cowboy language.
That's country. Well, I think we're kind of spent on the topic, so and no one's coming in to really join
All
us
right.
today.
Well,
So
let's call it a day, and we'll see each other again soon.
we'll do it again. And I'll put up some more videos this week on different topics to, kind of maybe set things up. And both of us can do the same thing. So we've got so many ideas, we got so many topics, folks. Just and also
Yep.
in the comments, let us know if there's something you guys want to talk about. Put it in the
Yes, make
comments.
suggestions.
Yeah, we need suggestions, man. We need as many suggestions as possible. We love doing this. So like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you know when we're coming on next. And yeah, we love to talk to you. You are invited.
Mhm.
So, anyways, man, I'm gonna call it a day, and we're gonna talk until next time.
Bye.
Bye bye. See y'all later. Have a good one. Great weekend.